Committee. I'm the chair of the committee, Councilor Tremontosi. And with us this evening is also the voting members, Councilor McMaster, Councilor Jamaldine, Councilor Thomas, President Sinella. I don't see Councilor Garapay yet, but non-voting members that are with us this evening. Oh, there he is. Thank you. I apologize. So we also present non-voting members, Councilors Migliarelli, Councilor Stewart, and I think that'll do it at the moment. We have a quorum, so we can begin. And I just want to read a statement for the remote meeting information. Pursuant to the suspension of certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Public Service Committee will be conducted via a remote participation in the greatest extent possible. We will post a comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Melrose website and on mmtv3.org. The public can find online access instructions to view this meeting at www.cityofmelrose.org/remote-meetings. With that in mind, we do have a quorum present, and I will make a motion to open for public comment, and unless I see an objection. Seeing no objection, this unanimous consent that the meeting is now open for public comment, and if there's anyone in the public who wishes to come forward to speak on any item on our agenda this evening, there's only one item on order on the agenda, but Mr. Clerk, is there anybody waiting in the waiting room that has their digital hand raised that wishes to speak?
If anyone is in the digital room for public comment for the Public Service Committee, please raise your digital hand. At this time, I do not see anyone.
All right. At this time, with the unanimous consent, I will close public comment. We have one order on the agenda. It's Order 2022-12. It's the appointment of Chris Redfern of 2 Spear Street to the Conservation Commission, said term to expire on the last day of February 2024. And I'll move to suspend the rules so we can hear from the administration and Mr. Redfern himself. Seeing no objections, unanimous consent that rules are now suspended. Is Mr. Redfern with us, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, he is. He's been unmuted. Mr. Redfern.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you for having me tonight.
Oh, you're very welcome, and we want to thank you for coming before us, and also to thank you for your commitment to the city. Would you like to say a few words before I open it up for discussion amongst the committee members?
Sure. I am very excited to be able to join the Conservation Commission. I have a fairly long history in the conservation profession, being the executive director of San Diego Audubon for almost 15 years, doing a lot of wetland restoration projects and advocacy. I understand that the commission is charged with looking at wetland-based issues and also other work related to the conservation lands in Melrose. I'm very interested in ways in which I can be involved and help make a difference to preserve and protect those lands, as well as the more regulatory aspects of the committee's work.
Great. Well, I thank you for that introduction. I note that you are presently the executive director of the Friends of the Middlesex Fells Reservation.
Yes, that's correct.
And how long have you been in that position, and what have the Friends of the Fells been up to these days?
I've been in that position for just about 2 years, and we are in the middle of a growth phase right now. We're adding some staff, and we're expanding our work around certain urgent conservation issues in the fells related to invasive species and rogue trails and just general enhancing the visitor experience of the fells generally.
That's great, and congratulations on that appointment. I see we are presently have the Honorable Mayor Paul Broder with us this evening, and would like to say a few words about Mr. Redfern and introduce him as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. It is good to see everyone. I know that you've had a chance to review Mr. Redfern's resume, but it bears repeating for the public that really immediately upon his arrival in Melrose, he became involved with the Friends of the Fells in a capacity where many of the activities he would be in a kind of a regulatory position to oversee or be part of that debate are things that he's directly working on in a professional capacity. And you'll note that prior to him coming to the East Coast, he had a mayoral appointment on the West Coast involved in land use and development and conservation. He has a long service with California Audubon, in particular the San Diego chapter of that organization. And there was time when he advised a park and rec board in the Mission Bay area. These are things that certainly, when this position became open, and knowing that the legacy of the Friends of the Fells and how Mr. Redfern is working to expand that mission, he seemed like a terrific choice. I would interestingly note, even though it is not directly germane to his role as a Conservation Commission member, that he does have a fairly impressive record of fundraising for projects in this area, and I wouldn't want to certainly put that on them. They're separate and distinct roles. But knowing how budgeting and finance works in terms of some of the work that is done in the world of conservation, I think is a bit of a new dimension that will add to the commission, and I hope you will act on his nomination favorably, and I appreciate the opportunity to address you all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. Do we have any questions from any of the committee members? Councilor Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Redfern, welcome. Mr. Mayor, welcome. Mr. Redfern, your years of experience speak for themselves. You've lived in some great, interesting places in Illinois and Colorado and San Diego. Hopefully you've brought some of that San Diego weather to Melrose, and especially Ward 7. We have a great history of volunteerism in Ward 7. Welcome to Ward 7. If you bring the San Diego weather, we'll be very happy. But if there's no other questions, I'd like to recommend for passage.
Second. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, we do have a motion to recommend by Councilor Thomas, and there was a second by, I believe it was Councilor Garapay. And on the motion, all in favor? All right. I apologize. I forget we're not in person. Mr. Clerk, can you call the roll?
Chair Trementozzi?
Yes.
Vice Chair McMaster?
Yes.
Councillor Jamaluddin?
Yes.
Councillor Garapay?
Yes.
Councillor Thomas?
Yes.
President Sinella?
Yes.
6 yes.
Yes, great. Thank you. So at this point, there is a vote to recommend Mr. Redfern, your appointment to the Conservation Commission. This will be presented at the full board for final vote. You do not have to attend, and it may even be later on this evening. But congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Redfern.
Thank you so much. It was very nice to meet you all.
Same here, and we look forward to seeing you at later times. With that in mind, that's the only thing we have on the agenda, and I'll See that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Councilor Garapay makes a motion to adjourn, seconded by Councilor Thomas. Mr. Clerk, can you just call the roll?
Chair Termentozzi,
Yes.
Vice Chair McMaster,
Yes.
Councillor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Councillor Garapay,
Yes.
Councillor Thomas,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Stay tuned for, I believe it's the Finance Committee is coming up next.
We can't just get going. All right. So good evening, everyone. The time is 6:31 p.m. on Monday, September 20th, 2021. This is a meeting of the Finance Committee, and I am Chairwoman Lila Migliarelli. Joining me are Vice Chair Rob Stewart and voting members, Councilors Trementozzi, Garapay, Jamaluddin, and President Sinella. And non-voting members, Councilors Thomas, Grigoritis, McMaster. Pursuant to the suspension of certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. We will post a comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Melrose website and on mmtv3.org. The public can find online access instructions to view this meeting at the City of Melrose at www.cityofmelrose.org/remote-meetings. So now is the time for public comment when anyone from the public may comment on any of the 3 agenda items we have for tonight. So if there's no objection, I'd like to open the floor for public comment. Okay, seeing none, we're now open for public comment. Mr. Clerk, is there anyone with their hand raised to speak on any of the Finance Committee agenda items?
If you're here for any public comment on finance agenda, please raise your digital hand. At this time, I do not see anyone with their digital hands raised.
All right, so if there's no objection, I'd like to close public comment. And seeing none, we're now closed for public comment. Since we have some members of the administration with us, I just thought I'd start with accepting a motion to suspend the rules so we can let them speak on the orders before us. Anyone
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules made by Councilor Jamaluddin, seconded by Councilor Vice Chair Stewart. Mr. Clerk.
Chair Migliarelli,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Termentozzi,
Yes.
Councillor Garapay,
Yes.
Councillor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
and President Sinella.
Yes.
6 yes.
Great. So now the rules have been suspended. And the first order on our agenda tonight is Order 2022-13, appointment of Sarah McClellan to serve as the Chief Assessor for the City of Melrose. So I see Mayor Broder is here to speak and Ms. McClellan. So Mayor Broder, if you'd like to kick it off.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will be brief because this is the second time Ms. McClellan has appeared before you. Last time was to consider her nomination to the Board of Assessors, and this time as a former role as a department head as Chief Assessor. Nothing has changed except that she's got a little bit more of experience. She has certainly mastered the finer points of the process, and as you know, I believe you all received from her earlier today a certification of our property tax growth for FY21 and the 4 years before that. So we have happy to say we have not skipped a beat. thus far, and I hope that your experience bears that out as well. And I ask for her confirmation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. President Snella?
At this time, I would like to just motion a recommendation to the full board of Ms. McClellan as Chief Assessor.
Second.
Okay, so a motion to recommend has been made by President Snella and seconded by Councillor Jamaluddin. On discussion, Councillor Vice Chair Stewart.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Do we want to offer an opportunity for Ms. McClellan to speak?
We can certainly do so. She is in the virtual room. Ms. McClellan, would you like to speak at all about your appointment? I don't know if she can hear us. Ms. McClellan, can you hear us?
We're trying to get her in here. Just
Okay. Mr. Clerk, was something on your end or is it on her? Or
I don't know. It says it gives me the opportunity to mute her, but she says that she's muted, so I'm not sure.
okay. Given that, any questions, Councillor Jamaluddin?
Considering possible having.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, she is. Okay.
No, we can't hear you, but we can see you. Still can't hear you. But we can see you, just so you know.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so thank you, Mayor Broder, and thank you to the committee for your time this evening and for your consideration again. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. As you may know, I've been working as the interim chief assessor in Melrose since June of this year. It's important for municipalities to consistently have an assessor in place. The assessor is responsible for determining the fair and equitable valuation of all real and personal property in the city. We work with the Department of Revenue on certification of values, and we're responsible for setting the tax rate each year. During my time here as an assistant assessor, I worked and learned under the great mentorship of the previous chief assessor, Chris Wilcock. I took many training courses in assessment procedures and practices, and I earned my designation as a Massachusetts accredited assessor. This certification is a requirement of the chief assessor position. I also maintain active memberships with the Massachusetts Association of Assessing Officers and the International Association of Assessing Officers. These organizations provide extensive education and training to assessors and also keep us updated on the changes in laws and best practices that apply to assessment and property tax. My main focus for the assessing department is to continuously provide excellent customer service to our residents and taxpayers. I realize that the citizens of Melrose come from every walk of life and many different backgrounds, so it's important to me to provide equitable service to the people who interact with our office. We regularly examine and refresh our best practices for customer service. I have registered recently to attend an effective leadership workshop next month, which is offered by the International Association of Assessing Officers. It's focused on building diversity, equity, and inclusion from a foundation of emotional intelligence. Another goal that I have for the department is to continuously improve our processes and the methods that we use to do our work. The pandemic created a challenge in the way that we conduct some of our regular operations. As you may recall, Chris Wilcock implemented technology solutions such as aerial mapping and the use of web-based services. I intend to continue identifying and implementing new technologies to improve the functions in our office and the services that we provide to the community. I really enjoy working with and serving the Melrose community. Having worked as the assistant assessor here for 4 years, having had the mentorship of Chris Wilcock, having achieved the technical training and certifications required, the chief assessor role is a natural next step for me. Again, thank you, and I'm very excited for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. McClellan. And there is a motion on the table to recommend. It's on discussion. Any counselors with questions for Ms. McClellan? Seeing none. Mr. Clerk, could you take the roll?
Chair Migliorelli,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Trementosi,
Yes.
Councillor Garape,
Yes.
Councillor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
That's 6 yes.
Great. So the order passes committee and will be heard likely at tonight's full council meeting. Thanks so much, Ms. McClellan.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you all.
Right. So the second order on our agenda is Order 2022-32, a request and recommendation that the Honorable City Council authorize in-person early voting for the November 2nd, 2021 municipal election in the City Council chamber at Melrose City Hall. And I believe we have our city clerk, Ms. Foote, here with us tonight. I don't know, Ms. Foote, if you have some remarks regarding this order.
Sure, thank you. I know we're under suspension, so I would just like to say, obviously, we want to do everything we can to encourage voters to get out there and to get into City Hall if they so choose to, offering them, again, early voting in person here in City Hall in the City Council chamber. The dates will be published should the committee so recommend and the council so adopt. And it's now fully accessible. We do have the handicap accessibility is non-starter at this point. The doors have been completely fixed, and I'm looking forward to favorable recommendation.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Stewart.
Madam Chair, at this point, I'll make a motion to recommend.
Second.
Motion to recommend made by Vice Chair Stewart, seconded by Councillor Jamaluddin. On discussion. Councillor Trementosi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When does the early voting begin?
Sure, thank you, Councillor Trementosi. The proposed dates are Saturday, October 23rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Again, on Monday, October 25th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Wednesday, 9 to noon, and then again, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. to offer the most varied hours so people can come after work or on the weekend, so should they so choose.
So those, I assume that those hours will be posted on the website.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to send, should this be favorably recommended, a individual postcard with all 3 ways to vote, which would be in person, by mail, and then on election day.
Okay, there's no appointments necessary. You can just walk in on those dates.
You just need to be a registered Melrosian voter.
Of course. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Sure.
And Madam Chair.
Any other questions? All right, so motions on the table by Vice Chair Stewart, seconded by Councillor Jamaluddin. Mr. Clerk, can you take the roll?
Chair Migliorelli,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Trementosi,
Yes.
Councillor Garape.
Yes.
Councillor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
That's 6 yes.
Great, so the order passes committee and will be heard probably later this evening. And also related to elections, the third and final order on our agenda tonight is Order 2022-33, calling a city election for Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. I think this is fairly self-explanatory. If Clerk Foot, if you have anything you want to add.
This is just a required state mandate. It's polls will be open at 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. the day of the election. The warrant has been posted on the bulletin board as well as on our website in compliance with the state law.
Vice Chair Stewart.
Madam Chair, at this point, I'd like to make a motion to recommend.
Councillor Garibay.
I'm sorry, yeah, I was on discussion, sorry.
Okay, okay.
A quick question for the city clerk. You had mentioned in the last order that a mailer would be going out. We did a few weeks back change to single polling location. What else is the plan to or the schedule to publicize this for the residents of the community other than a mailer, or is there going to be multiple mailers?
There's a whole communications plan. There will be the banner in City Hall that will go up 2 weeks in a row regarding the temporary consolidation. There will be articles in all the local press. We're trying to get a schedule of 6 individual articles. They will be posted on our website. I'm going to reach out to the school committee chair to see if they can also do a little public relations regarding that to their user group. And then it will be on our website as well.
Thank you. I mean, I'll second that if there were no more. Sorry, sorry, Jamaldine.
Yeah, we're okay. Well, let's just say the motion has been made by Vice Chair Stewart, seconded by Councillor Garibay. On discussion, Councillor Jamaldine with questions.
Thank you. I was just gonna make suggestion if we can also share it with different department heads in addition to the Council on Aging, so that different population can be reached. In addition, collaborating with the different commissions like Human Rights Commission and Commission on Disability, so that they can also publish that and advertise for it as well.
Sure, that's a great suggestion. Actually, we're also going to be at the Council on Aging Senior Fair, myself and the Elections Administrator, to be on hand with all of our information as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Mr. Clerk?
Chair Migliorelli,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Trementozzi. We'll get back to Councillor Trementozzi. Councillor Garibay. Councillor Garibay?
Yeah, Councillor Garibay, yes.
And Councillor Trementozzi?
Yes.
Councillor Jamaldine?
Yes.
President Sinella?
Yes.
That is 6 yes.
Right. So the order passes committee and will be heard later tonight. Thank you, Ms. Foot, for coming and talking to us about elections. So entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, at this point, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion to adjourn made by Vice Chair Stewart, seconded by Councillor Trementozzi. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Migliorelli,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Trementozzi,
Yes.
Councillor Garibay,
Yes.
Councillor Jamaldine,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
6 yes.
We're now adjourned and on to Legal and Legislative Committee.
I'm just giving it 1 minute till we're at 6:50 according to my clock. All right, Mr. Clerk, are we ready to go?
We are.
Okay. Good evening. The time is 6:50 p.m. on Monday, September 20th, 2021, and this is a meeting of the Legal and Legislative Committee. I'm Jen Grigoritis, the chair, and joining me tonight are Vice Chair Councillor Migliorelli and voting members Councillors Trementozzi, McMaster, Eccles, and President Sinella ex officio. I'm going to, for purposes of the virtual room, not list the names of any counselors who do not have their cameras on, but they are, of course, welcome to join these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Melrose website and on mmtv3.org. The public can find online access instructions to view this meeting at the City of Melrose website. And at this time, I will, without objection, open the floor to public comment. Okay, seeing no objection, we'll now move to the public comment portion of our meeting. This is when any member of the public can speak to any of the 3 items on our agenda. And if you are interested in speaking in public comment, if you can please raise a digital hand, or I think it might be a check mark. Also, can you hear me? I think I was having some tech issues. Yes, okay. So, Mr. Clerk, do we have anyone wishing to speak in public comment?
I do not see anyone with a check mark or a digital hand raised at this time.
Okay, so we don't have anyone wishing to speak in public comment. So without objection, I will close public comment. Okay, so moving on, we are now at the portion of orders. We have 3 orders before us tonight, and I believe we have members of the administration here to speak on the first 2 orders. So I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
We have a motion to suspend the rules made by Councillor Eccles, seconded by Vice Chair Migliarelli. Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Chair Grigoritis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliarelli,
Yes.
Councillor Trementosi,
Yes.
Councillor McMaster,
Yes.
Councillor Eccles,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
6 yes.
Okay, thank you. So the rules are now suspended. So the other request that I would make of the committee, and please let me know if I'm losing audio, is to entertain a motion to take order 2022-21, amending chapter 228 of the revised ordinances of the City of Melrose, water, sewers, and drains out of order. We have 1 member of the administration who's here solely to speak to that order tonight. So as a courtesy, I wanted to try to bump this up if the committee is so inclined.
Yeah, motion to take it out of order, 2022-21.
Second.
So we have a motion to take order 2022-21 out of order made by Councillor Trementosi, seconded by Councillor Eccles. Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Chair Grigoritis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliarelli,
Yes.
Councillor Trementosi,
Yes.
Councillor McMaster,
Yes.
Councillor Eccles,
Yes.
and President Sinella.
Yes.
6 yes.
Okay, thank you. So that passes. So we now have order 2022-21, amending chapter 228 of the revised ordinances of the City of Melrose, water, sewers, and drains before us. And I believe we have Ms. Proakis Ellis and Ms. Reese coming before us.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we waiting for Vani?
Yeah, I think she texted me a couple minutes ago. I think she is on. Do you see her, Andrew?
Yes, she's coming on right now.
Okay, there she is.
Oh, there I see her. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right, and I will turn it over to you.
So, an issue that I had identified when I first started with the city 6 years ago was that the water and sewer ordinance was extremely outdated. And when new regulatory changes had been made at the Mass DEP level and others, they had been sort of shoehorned into the existing ordinance, and it was never really fully updated to reflect current practice and just modern standards of ways that water and sewer systems are typically run. And also, largely, there was language in the ordinance that just didn't match up with either the typical practice of the department or the city staff. And there were references to very specific language in the state law that was basically quoted verbatim, but as those laws have changed, the language wasn't updated, especially pertaining to backflow prevention, industrial wastewater. The references to the MWRA still said Metropolitan District Commission, so that dates back to the 90s. Those updates had never been made. Permitting processes for what's required to apply for water and sewer service or to replace services were not clearly spelled out. Ownership of service or utility service lines. It's always been that we own the water services from the main to the property line, and the property owner owns inside of that. And on sewer, the property owner owns all the way out to the main. But that the language that specified that was very just vague and not really. It was a bit challenging when we would get into those discussions with property owners, even though it was known that that was the policy. We have some fees that were specified within the ordinance, others that were not, for things like inspections, turning on and off water. We had very old fees that were listed that are far from accurate at this time. So we proposed moving all of the fees and the rates out to a schedule of fees. Just to be very clear, we're not proposing any changes to who sets the rates, how the rates are set, how the committee, the Water and Sewer Rate Committee votes, and then the council and the mayor approve the rates. That is all still exactly the same. We're just proposing to pull the listing of the rates out of the ordinance so that we're not updating the ordinance each time. And the definitions were different in one article from another, which made things very confusing. There were references to drainage systems within the sewer section because we formerly did not have a drainage section. And this committee recently approved Article 5, which was the new stormwater section for the ordinance. And so we were able to remove any duplicate language now from the sewer section. And as provided in the memo that I sent to the council a couple of weeks ago, in general, we just wanted to clarify, modernize, and better organize our ordinances for water, sewer, and drain that you previously approved, but it all falls into the same article. I did take a last read through today, and I identified some very minor, actually there are 7 extraordinarily minor items that I think may warrant a change from what was submitted to the council. And so if it's appropriate, I'd like to just run through those quickly. Chair Grigoritis, is that appropriate?
Sure. Are you referencing the tracked changes version just so people can maybe follow along?
So I would actually look at the non-track changes version because the track changes version is just so cumbersome.
Okay.
So number 1 is just that we, in the definitions in Article 2, we just missed the definition for division, which is a term that we use fairly extensively later in the ordinance. And so that would be the City of Melrose DPW Water Division. Number 2 is the definition for inspection. Should really say backflow inspection. Because that was, it used to specifically live within the backflow article, and once we moved it to a consolidated definition section for water, it just didn't, it needed to be clarified. Number 3 is the definition of owner. Again, that was moved from the backflow section, but we use the term owner throughout Articles 2 and 3 to refer to the owner of record of any property. And so I'd like to just define it as owner of record of any property. Item 4 is in section 228-6. And we converted throughout the entire ordinance, we eliminated any his or her or him or her language and replaced with their or them. And we just missed one in item A. It says his or her agent, and I'd just like to change that to their. Item number 5 is in section 228-14. It says under B, it says all water meters up to, it says under 1 inch in size will be furnished and placed and maintained by the city. That should be up to 1 inch in size. The way it's worded right now, it talks about under 1 inch and over 1 inch, and it forgets to say that what happens to a 1 inch meter. So it should be all water meters up to 1 inch in size. And then finally, oh wait, I think I have 2 more. Number 6 is just in section 228-19. This is just a formatting error. There should be, the 4 paragraphs should be items A, B, C, and D. And lastly, section 228-24 is where we removed the backflow definitions from. And so we just forgot to put the note, this section intentionally blank. That should appear in that. There's nothing now in 228-24. So those were the only edits. Bonnie, did you have anything you'd like to add before we get into questions? I don't think we can hear you. Still can't hear you. I think we just, yes.
Yes, I'm all set.
Okay. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions.
Do we have any questions from the committee? And I just, Councilor McMaster, I can't see you. So for some reason, I don't know if this is the issues in City Hall, but we don't have video on you. So I don't know if you're raising your hand. Are there any questions from the council? All right. Do we have any motion either to accept the suggested amendments to what's proposed before us, or any, Councilor Tramontosi? I don't know if
Yeah, no.
moving forward, if there's something you wanted to say.
No, that's right. I'm going to make a motion to recommend the order as amended this evening.
Second.
So we have a motion to recommend for passage of the order as amended by those 7 amendments that were outlined by Ms. Proakis Ellis, made by Councilor Tramontosi, seconded by Vice Chair Migliarelli. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Chair Gregoritis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliarelli,
Yes.
Councilor Tramontosi,
Yes.
Councilor McMaster.
So he's having, oh, there we go. Okay, he's just said, let me know he's having some technical issues.
Councilor Eccles,
Yes.
President Snella.
Yes.
6 yes.
Okay, 6 yes, so the motion carries. And now we'll move on to order 2022-116, amending chapter 198 of the revised ordinances City of Melrose Solid Waste and Recycling Ordinance Update and Schedule of Fees. And I believe Ms. Reese is leaving us. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to be joined by Ms. Scott as well. We can bring her in. And we found Councilor McMaster. Excellent.
While Lisa's joining, I believe she was going to give a brief presentation. And so, Andrew, if you're able to give her the ability to share, or else if you're able to share the presentation, I believe it was posted on IQM2.
Can you all hear me?
Just barely.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Much better.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
We can't see you though.
Okay. Oh.
There you go.
How's that? Okay. I have the presentation on my computer if you want me to run it through mine, Andrew.
Yes, I've made you a presenter, so you should be able to share it.
Okay, great. Okay, are you able to see that?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you, counselors, for your time tonight. My name is Lisa Scott. I am the Environmental Outreach Coordinator for the Melrose Department of Public Works. The following slides are going to show proposed changes to the City of Melrose Ordinance, Chapter 128, Solid Waste, Article 2, Collection and Disposal. These changes are designed to update language to reflect current practice. There are a number of fees associated with curbside pickup services, city yard drop-off items, and special yard events. Two of these fees are currently mentioned in city ordinances, the metal goods item pickup fee and the annual trash fee. Many other fees are not included in Article 2, like those for disposal of electronics, tires, and propane tanks at the city yard. We propose the adoption of a comprehensive schedule of fees to be maintained by the DPW director and published on the DPW website for transparency. The fees are designed to cover vendor costs, not generate income. Currently, Article 2, Section 198-3C2 lists the metal pickup fee as $20, when in practice the fee is $25 and has been since late 2016 or early 2017. Thanks to a grant from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection and in preparation for a statewide waste disposal ban on mattresses, the DPW has begun a mattress recycling program. We offer curbside pickup by a vendor or drop off at city yard. We propose adding the language shown on this slide, which is similar to that of the existing metal item pickup. In practice, the city limits residents to 4 barrels or bags of trash per week, and each are 45 gallons or less and 45 pounds or less. We propose including that language in Article 2, Section 198-3, Part B. The council may decide to leave this determination up to the city at this time, so that is up for discussion tonight. Could be a variable. The city does not currently provide recycling containers to residents and hasn't for about 5 years since the old supply ran out. We propose changing the language in Article 2 to reflect current practice, and there is no limit to the number of recycling receptacles that may be placed curbside. Article 2, Section 198-4A3 currently defines what is considered acceptable recyclable waste to be put out for residential curbside collection. In practice, details of what materials are acceptable are determined by current recycling markets, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, and the city's contracted materials recovery facility, or MRF. We propose removing language from the ordinance that defines the specifics of what is acceptable recyclable waste and leaving the determination to the Director of Public Works with guidance from Mass DEP and the contracted MRF. The recycling bin can be a confusing place. Are pizza boxes recyclable? For a while, they were not accepted, but now they are. What about plastic takeout containers? Clear, white, and orange plastic containers are recyclable, but black plastic containers, takeout containers, are not accepted. Why? They aren't sorted properly at the MRF because they blend in with the conveyor belt. Because of these quirks of the recycling system, we recommend removing the specific language out of Article 2. These are recommended changes meant to reflect current practice relating to solid waste and recycling. Thanks for your time. And now I'd like to turn it over to Director Proakis Ellis, who will provide an update to our proposal.
Thank you, Lisa. That was very helpful. In conversation earlier today with Chair Grigoritis and in review of the language one last time while speaking to the chair, we did identify again 3 very minor items that I'm proposing should be updated from the language that's in the draft ordinance. The first item is incredibly minor in section 198.3A, just to eliminate the capitalization of curbside pickup services, drop-off items, and special events. So city yard would still be capitalized, but all the other items would not. Secondly, we have another his or her that I'd like to change to their in item G, 198.3G. And then lastly, with regard to the types of receptacles that are allowable, we had said we'd used the word may, so residents may use plastic or metal barrels under both the solid waste section and the recycling section. There's that same language that says may, and we'd like to change that to shall in those 2 places because to clarify that, you know, it's not really a choice. It's not an option that they may use those or they may use something else of their to their liking, like a plastic bag for recyclables or the like. So we were proposing to make those changes. In addition to that, as Lisa mentioned, the specifying of the types of containers and of the limits that we presently do have and we do enforce, whether to include those in the ordinance or not is really up for debate and you know, subject to the will of this committee. They've never been in the ordinance before, and they've always just been city policy and posted on the city's website. And that may provide added flexibility for future changes. But on the flip side, it may behoove us to slightly revise this language, leave the limits and the sizes and the barrels in, and take out the word bags. If the will of the committee is to recommend not allowing bags without a barrel for especially for trash, but also for recycling, nothing should be in a plastic bag anyway. So these are slight changes that could be made that are up in the air, and we could either strike those sections altogether, we could modify those sections to just specify the type of receptacle and not the limits, or we could just keep it as proposed, change may to shall, and take out the word or bags.
Thank you, Ms. Proakis Ellis, and to Ms. Scott as well. And I believe I have Councilor McMaster. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you both for being here. Ms. Proakis Ellis, I'm wondering with respect to striking the word bags, if we might want to consider keeping the word bags in there, but specifying that bags would relate to yard waste. Just wanted your thoughts on that before. I guess I wouldn't want to send a mixed message to the public with respect to the next order that comes before us, filed by Councilor Grigoritis and I, that somehow bags that contain yard waste would have to be put inside of a barrel.
So the first reference to bags is specific for solid waste collection. So in that instance, that would be 198.3B in the proposed language. So in that instance, if we wanted to take out the words or bags, that would be clear that it pertained to solid waste. The second instance pertains to recycling. And so that could be construed to include yard waste. And so maybe, and actually we don't have the word bags right now in that one. Let me see. Lisa, do you know, is there a reference to specific to yard waste on what type of receptacle?
I'm looking for that right now.
It's possible we didn't include that section because it was not being changed.
Oh, here. Okay, wait. 198-3, ashes and rubbish, yard waste, metal goods, collection fees. And then B, under that, action calendar, all leaves and grass clippings, provided that such materials do not violate any regulation. Leaves and grass clippings shall be placed at curbside for city pickup in plain brown paper bags or barrels, subject to such reasonable limits as may be set by the Director of Public Works. No loose materials will be collected. The Director of Public Works shall operate a drop-off yard waste collection program in conjunction with this subsection.
So I guess the only place we'd be removing bags then would be in reference to solid waste specifically.
That sounds like it. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the council? I would. Yep, Vice Chair Fleurelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Proikis Ellis and Ms. Scott. Can I just, I don't know if I heard you correctly, Ms. Proikis Ellis. Did you mention something about enforcement? I just wanted to get that, or no? Okay.
No, other than I may have said, you know, that the limit that we enforce right now is the 4-barrel limit. We don't pick up, if someone puts out 10 barrels at their property, JRM does not pick it up. If it's a single family home, it's supposed to be per household. So presumably if it was clearly a 2-family home, they would pick up more than 4 barrels. But if it's a single family home and someone puts out 10 barrels, JRM will skip that address. They end up calling, and then our office will explain to them why they've been skipped.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Trementozzi.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Miss Ellis, what's the rationale for or the thoughts behind eliminating bags in the solid waste ordinance? Because right now the way it works is we can put out barrels with or without lids. We can have trash bags put out on the curb, in or out of trash barrels. So what is and right now the way it is worded, the solid waste collection, you can have plastic or metal barrels or bags, so you can put bags out. So you're suggesting that we could, if we wanted to eliminate bags and just require the use of barrels. And I wanted to know the rationale for suggesting that.
So this came up subsequent to our submitting this order and these proposed changes. And there was an order that I believe you're hearing next, submitted by the council, that relates to public health concerns and rodents and the like. And so the potential requirement of covered receptacles would then preclude the use of bags. And so I wanted to ensure that the language that we were presenting tonight for our needs doesn't conflict with whichever way you opt to vote on the subsequent order. So when we put this forth, and our language, it was all reviewed by the city solicitor, as was all the other language in the prior order that we discussed. I forgot to mention that. This all passed muster for everybody in the city, but then having seen the proposed order for the covered receptacles, the use of bags is just somewhat contradictory, and we didn't want to hold up the voting of these necessary changes for that other discussion. So the staff can adjust whichever way the council decides.
Right, so that's a good point, Ms. Ellis, because through Madam Chair, through you to the makers of the third order on the agenda this evening, because I think that order also addresses that issue, and I know we haven't discussed that yet, and we will, the issue of the bags and barrels, lids, and so forth. So. It seems to me that if we choose, we could change that language as a result of adopting the next order. My thinking is at this point would be to move to recommend the order as made for this particular order. Leave it as is, including the language of the bags, and then we can address that with the third subsequent order and see where that goes. But my suggestion would be just to leave it as you have done in your amendment to this particular proposal, this particular order, and then just move on and then see where it goes with the next order. How's that? So. With that in mind, I'll make a motion to recommend as written, amending Chapter 198 of the revised ordinance of the City of Merrill Solid Waste and Recycling Ordinance updated, and motion to recommend as most recently amended this evening by the minor amendments that you have suggested, and then open it up for discussion. So I'll make that motion at this time.
So we have a motion to recommend Order 2022-16 for passage with the 3 minor amendments that were proposed tonight. Do we have a second? Councilor McMaster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just point of information through you to Councilor Trementozzi, or point of clarity. Just so we understand so that I understand the motion that's on the floor, are you suggesting, Councilor Trementozzi, that the word trash bag or bags not be removed until we know what's going to happen with the next order before us? And if that order passes favorably, that when the order before us now goes before the full council, that a motion could be made to eliminate the word bags. Is that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that clarification, Councilor McMaster. That would be my intention for the motion.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Councilor Trementozzi to recommend as is, second with the 3 amendments, seconded by Councilor McMaster. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, or sorry, I knew I was going to do that tonight. Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Chair Grigoritis?
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliorelli?
Yes.
Councilor Trementozzi?
Yes.
Councilor McMaster?
Yes.
Councillor Eccles,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
That's 6 yes.
6 yes, so the motion carries. So this will be recommended with those 3 amendments. And I believe that concludes the portion of the city. Thank you. And if you could just send a written draft of those amendments to the clerk, that would be really helpful because I think only you have them right now.
Yes, thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much.
both. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Night.
All right, so our final order before us is Order 2022-25, amending Chapter 198, Article 2, Section 198-2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Melrose Collection and Disposal. And I am one of the co-authors of the order. I will turn it over to Councilor McMaster as my co-author.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to members of the committee. I first just wanted to acknowledge Councilor Grigoritis. I think it's important to recognize that sometimes when you sign on to co-sponsor an order, someone signs on essentially in support. Councilor Grigoritis has been very proactive in the lawmaking process here, offering insight and counsel along the way. And having communications up until earlier today with the administration on this. So I appreciate, Councilor Grigoritis, your role in drafting this ordinance. In terms of background, this amendment was filed in an effort to help combat the rat problem here in Melrose, a problem that many other communities in the greater Boston area are also dealing with. Although not exclusive to Melrose, there are a number of factors that have compounded this problem in our community. With very rocky and ledgy terrain, the landscape here provides a natural haven for rats. So too does the 2.5 miles of railroad tracks. Although no area of the city is immune to this problem, Councilor Grigoritis and I both represent wards with problem areas. Hers being the downtown area where there are more trash barrels and dumpsters than in other parts of the city. Mine being a ward where there has been significant construction over the last 2 years. On the east side of the ward, Lower Main Street was under construction for quite some time. On the west side of the ward, the construction at Oak Grove Station and at the old Marty's Furniture Building, as well as the underground utility work on Brazil Street, has been ongoing for well over a year now. All of this above ground and underground construction has disrupted and displaced rats from their burrows, who have found refuge in the wooded, rocky terrain on the east side of Boston Rock Road and 5-1, and in the backyards on the west side of Brazil Street all the way to the Malden line, where an expansive ledge runs across the backside of the properties. This order, although not a cure-all, is a concerted effort to eliminate the most common yet controllable food source for rats, household trash. And the order is rather straightforward. What it does is that it amends our current order on refuse and disposal by 1, requiring that all household refuse be placed in a trash barrel with a tightly fitted lid, and 2, creating an enforcement mechanism and corresponding fine structure, the latter to begin with a written warning. In support of this order, I do think that it's important to reflect on 2 points made by the exterminator who spoke at Mayor Broder's educational forum last month. And some of the council, some members of this council were present at that forum and remember that the exterminator said, quote, "If you want a community-wide program that works, it's going to come down to one word, sanitation," end quote. The exterminator mentioned the word sanitation at least 2 dozen times during the forum. He went on to say, quote, "The rats in your neighborhood know what day trash collection is." Let me reflect on that for a moment. We think about that. The rats in your neighborhood know what day trash collection is. I believe that this order is a common sense step, albeit a first step, at targeting the rat problem in our city. With all of that having been said, I ask my fellow members of this committee for your support in favorably recommending this amendment to the ordinance tonight. Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor McMaster. Do we have any questions or comments from our colleagues? President Sinella.
Thank you, Chair Grigoritis. I just want to thank the makers of this order. I think as the legislative body, this order is one way that this council can address some of the residents' concerns. I don't think it's an unreasonable request to ask residents to secure their trash, both from rodent issue as well as litter that we've seen around my business in downtown. Debris blowing out of trash barrels and or coming out of bags ripped open. But I've spent 10 years in an abutting community with a similar ordinance. It seemed to work well. I would like to make a motion to amend the order to add in an effective date, say of March 2022 to go into effect. That way it'll give the administration time to alert residents through quarterly water bills, trash fee on there, as well as the monthly. Thank you. So I made a motion to amend this to add that effective date.
So we have a motion by President Sinella to amend the order to add an effective date of March 1st, 2022. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councillor Eccles. Is there any discussion? Councillor McMaster.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate your support. I'm perfectly fine with an amendment that has an effective date so that this doesn't necessarily go into effect immediately and cause confusion or put the administration in a position where it hasn't had a chance to figure out how to enforce this, even though there is an enforcement mechanism. I think Councilor Grigoritis and I both recognize the need for public outreach and awareness. I do think 6 months is longer than necessary to effectuate the outreach and the enforcement operational side of this ordinance. I would think 45 days should give the administration adequate time, but 6 months when we're really on the precipice of what is a public health crisis or could be a public health crisis, considering what we've been seeing, what we're hearing from our constituents, does concern me. So I would certainly be okay with something less than 6 months, but 6 months to me is just too long considering what we're facing right now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other councillors on discussion? Councillor Tramontosi.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. So just so we get some clarification here, and I do want to thank both councillors for this fine piece of legislation. I think there is, and I've heard of the problems that we've been having in the community, so I think this is a good way to address the issue of the rats in the community. So going back to my previous questions directed to Director Ellis, Caracas Ellis. So this change, this ordinance would in effect require that the residents use trash barrels, whether it's plastic or metal with lids. Is that correct? To the chair, to Councilor McMaster.
Councilor McMaster.
Yes, Councilor Tramontosi, it really is that simple. It just requires that residents no longer put trash on the curbside, and that trash at all times, whether it's on the curbside or sitting next to a home, has a cover on it.
Okay. And great, thank you. And then the issue about bags. There's nothing prohibiting a homeowner from putting trash in bags, except that bag has to then be put into a receptacle, metal or plastic, correct?
Through the chair, yes, Councilor.
Great. That's the clarification I wanted. That's good. I appreciate that. I agree with Councilor McMaster about the 6 months seems to be a long time to, especially when we're having this problem now. Let's get it working. That 6 months is a little bit too long to give you that grace period. I think most residents pretty much up to speed and use receptacles now as it is. And 45 days. 60 days might be a little bit more reasonable, but I'll leave it to the rest of the board to talk about that. But thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Tremontosi. Do I have any other councilors on discussion? Vice Chair Migliarelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, through you to the makers of the chair, you being one of the makers of the order, not the chair. What, you know, I asked Ms. Prekis Ellis about enforcement. You guys referenced that here. It also leads me to think of, you know, some of the other questions and concerns that other residents may have about, you know, well, you know, what if I don't have access to a barrel, or I'm elderly or having a hard time getting a barrel out. And I just wanted to, I think some of the length of time in terms of implementation is to perhaps give the city, it's the city's responsibility to implement this. And this is a suggestion for how to take care of trash. I just wonder if the makers of the order can talk a little bit about the sort of distinction between what you're setting forward here versus what perhaps the next steps in terms of implementation might look like in your minds.
Madam Chair, is that for you or for me?
I'm happy to be a little breaking protocol and answer it. I think I agree with both the time sensitiveness of this and the fact that I think we really want to make sure that this is communicated to residents. I think, as this body well knows, the mayor's office has a much bigger microphone and platform than the council. So we obviously need to rely on the administration to broadcast this to residents. And I would like to make sure that we're taking advantage of not just newspaper ads and social media, but trying to get language added into the quarterly water and sewer bills that get put out, possibly getting something added into the annual street listing that goes out in January to really make sure residents are aware of this. I have had conversations with both the mayor and with Ms. Prekis Ellis, who was incredibly helpful today in our conversations about, you know, how do we address issues for people for whom there is a severe financial burden. I think just like we handle those issues for residents around, you know, not needing help with the gas bill or with not being able to pay their water and sewer fees, I think there's a mechanism that the city can put in place. I don't think that has to be codified in this ordinance, but I would want to make sure they, you know, that there's sufficient time to work toward that. I'm wondering if kind of a way to meet in the middle is to have this be effective within 45 days, but that enforcement doesn't begin until March 1st, so that we're giving residents a grace period to kind of get up to speed on this. Many surrounding communities do this. Many of them have also purchased the barrels for residents. I don't think that's something that the city is prepared to do at this time, but I think we can also look into if there's opportunities for barrels to be bought at cost that can be available to lower income residents. I think there's a lot of options for implementation. I know I've already talked too much. Does that, Councilor McMaster, do you think that covers it? Go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, I do think that is a good compromise. I would be satisfied with that if President Sinella would withdraw the motion and make a new motion to amend. The one thing I would say, and I know Councilor Grigoriadis, that you and I are committed to this, is working with the administration, not just in terms of figuring out the enforcement side and the public outreach side, but to the extent that we can work with the administration to ensure that any problem areas that are identified between now and when the enforcement provisions would take effect, that there is, to the extent that resources allow, some outreach to problem areas or to, you know, habitual violators of the intent of this, the spirit of this this ordinance. So I really would urge the administration to look beyond planning, but also in the meantime, for those areas that have been identified as problematic, doing the type of door-to-door outreach to those properties. I think it would behoove all of us for that to occur if we're really going to try to tackle this issue most effectively and as timely as possible, understanding some of the constraints that the administration is facing.
Thank you, Councilor McMaster. Anyone, President Sinella, sorry, did you have your hand raised?
Yes, I will withdraw my original motion and make a motion to amend to go to effect for 45 days with enforcement starting in March.
I'll withdraw my second and second that motion, Madam Chair.
So we have a new motion before us made by President Snella, seconded by Councillor Eccles for the regulation, the changes to go into effect within 45 days of today and with enforcement to begin by the city as of March 1st, 2022. Is there any discussion? Vice Chair Migliarelli.
I'm supportive of this motion. I just wanted to maybe point of clarification or order. I think we're aware that we have an audience watching tonight, and that I think this is the City Council has, just for the public to understand, limits as to what we can do to help mitigate the rat problem that is in Melrose and that we've been approached by. And I think, I thank the makers of this order for taking the initiative to kind of come up with one way to maybe mitigate that order. But this is not really, this is not a comprehensive rat, strategy to get rid of rats in the city. And this is just one piece of it. So I just wanted to make that point of clarification as people are watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Migliarelli. Councillor Eccles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to both of you and Councilor McMaster for putting this forward. I'm supportive of this motion. I generally am of the opinion that many people like to follow the rules. So an effective ordinance date hopefully will bring some people who are not currently in compliance, and then we can kind of work out the details over the next 6 months. I concur with Councilor Migliarelli that this is one of the few levers that the City Council can pull, and look forward to more mitigating programs either put forward by the City Council or the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eccles. Before we call the roll, I do want to just point out one, I think it's a point of clarification, and I will certainly defer to our two more senior parliamentarians and how best to address this. But with regard to the previous order tonight that we just recommended for passage, that included language saying that barrels can be no more than 45 gallons, or and what the draft that you have before us, I believe, says 60. So I'd like to address that discrepancy so that those two things are in sync. I had recommended the 60 just based on what I had read in other communities. I again had a chance to talk with Director Proakis Ellis today, and 45 seems to be the standard for within Melrose. I checked my own barrels, they're 45. I do think the putting in a limit is important from an OSHA perspective for those people that are picking up our trash. We certainly don't want anyone being injured by a 90-pound trash barrel. So I don't know if I can motion on a motion or if we should wait until we do it separately. Councillor McMaster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My apologies. I think at this point, rather than asking the President and Councillor Eccles to withdraw and make a more comprehensive amendment, if we vote on the amendment before us, and then somebody makes a new motion with respect to the size of the barrels to comport with the order that was before us tonight, I think that would be the most appropriate way to do it at this point, and probably the most efficient in terms of time.
Councillor Eccles.
Thank you. I also, just to like a little point of clarification of when 45 days is, either when the amendment's read, is it 45 days from council passage? Should the mayor choose to sign it, his signature? Could we put a date on that? And then March 2022 is obviously an obvious effective date for March 1st. Thanks. We could just clarify that.
Councillor McMaster.
Thank you. That's a good point, Councillor Eccles. We may just to the motion want to add the language from the time of passage. I do want to be sensitive to the time, and the mayor does have 10 days. So if we can get ahead of this within that 10-day period, I would prefer that. Under the charter, the mayor does have 10 days to sign it. So I think rather than from the time that His Honor the Mayor affixes his signature, from the time that this order passes the full council would probably be the best way to go about doing this.
Councillor Tramontosi.
Yes, thank you. I'm in full agreement with the approach on the date, and also the barrel size. The only comment I have is right now, the trash collection is picked up. The way they're doing it is they're just picking it up and lifting the barrels into the truck. I think those larger containers, 60 gallon or so, are in those communities where the trucks that collect the trash actually lift the barrels themselves with the mechanism. And I don't believe we have that in the way our collection contract is designed at this point. In the future, if that occurs, we could go with the larger barrels, but I think we have to go with the standard 45 gallon barrels because of that. That's my understanding. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts about that, but yeah, I think that's the difference between the 45 and the 60. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think that's probably accurate. So since I've made a bit of a procedural soup out of all of this, we currently have a motion before us to recommend for passage with a implementation date of 45 days out from the mayor's signature. I'm just making yes, and an enforcement date of March 1st, 2022. Councilor McMaster.
My apologies, Madam Chair. I had suggested 45. Well, in enforcement of enforcement of this, or it would take effect within the time that the full council passes this. The enforcement piece would be 45 days from, excuse me, 6 months from the time of the mayor's signature. And I do think also that second part, which we added, we already had a motion on the floor. So I do think the effective piece and the part with respect to the gallons needs to be in a second motion together. Right before us right now, the motion on the floor is the amendment that President Sinella put forth. Not to, my apologies for overcomplicating this, but procedurally, I think we just have to do.
Oh, you're cutting out. Or is that just on my end? I think we lost Councilor McMaster. Is that just for me?
I think we lost him overall.
Okay, all right. So sorry, President Sinella, can you repeat your motion?
So my motion is to amend this effective on the city council's passage, 45 days from the mayor signing. Enforcement in March, starting March 1st.
And that's seconded by Councilor Eccles?
Yes.
Okay, I believe is there any discussion? I believe we may have lost our clerk. I don't see him.
He might be with Councilor McMaster.
Oh, he might be. Oh, but we have.
Can you hear me?
We can, Madam Clerk. How are you?
I'm great. I've been following along.
Thank you. So we have a motion before us to amend for, I hope I get this correct, implementation 45 days from passage by the council and enforcement as of March 1st, 2022. Made by President Sinella, seconded by Councilor Eccles. No discussion. Madam Clerk or Mr. Clerk, whoever wants to call the roll. It's nice to have both of you.
Andrew, you live?
I think so, yes. Do you hear me?
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'll call the roll. Chair Grigoritis?
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliore?
Yes.
Councilor Trementozzi?
Yes.
Councilor McMaster? I will message Councilor McMaster for this. Or Councilor Eccles?
Yes.
President Sinella?
Yes.
Councilor McMaster has just confirmed he has voted yes on the matter.
Okay, thank you. So that's
Six yes, yeah.
6 yes. So the amendment carries. this time, I would entertain an amendment to the 60 gallons to be reduced to 45 gallons in compliance with the other parts of the section of the city code.
Motion to amend that portion to reflect 45 gallons.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Tramontosi to amend to reflect 45 gallons, seconded by President Sinella. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Chair Gregorius,
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliorelli,
Yes.
Councilor Tremontosi,
Yes.
Councilor McMaster,
Yes.
Councilor Eccles,
Yes.
and President Sinella.
Yes.
We have 6 yes here too.
Okay, thank you. 6 yes. So that amendment from 60 gallons to 45 gallons passes. So what is the will of the committee? Councilor Tramontosi.
Yes, thank you. Motion to recommend for passage as amended.
So we have a motion to recommend for passage as amended by Councilor Tramontosi, seconded by President Sinella. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Chair Gregorius,
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliorelli,
Yes.
Councilor Tremontosi,
Yes.
Councilor McMaster,
Yes.
Councilor Eccles,
Yes.
and President Sinella.
Yes.
We have 6 yes here.
6 yes, so the motion passes. So this will be recommended for passage to the full council. And with that, that concludes our business tonight in Legal and Ledge. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn made by Councilor Eccles, seconded by Vice Chair Migliorelli. Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Chair Gregorius,
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliorelli,
Yes.
Councilor Tremontosi,
Yes.
Councilor McMaster,
Yes.
Councilor Eccles,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
6 yes.
6 yes, thank you. Legal and Ledge is adjourned. And thank you, Councilor Jamaluddin. I know we got it in with 7 minutes remaining. Thank you all.
Thank you. We can now start the health, education, and welfare. Good evening. My name is Maya Jamaluddin, the chair of the Health, Education, and Welfare. Joining me tonight, Vice Chair Leila Migliorelli, voting members Jack Eccles, Rob Stewart, Corey Thomas, and President Christopher Sinella. Pursuant to the suspension of certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Health, Education, and Welfare Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. We will post a comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Melrose website and on mmtv/mmtv3.org. The public can find online access instructions to view this meeting at www.cityofmelrose.org/remote meeting. With that, I would entertain motion to open public comment.
Motion to open public comment.
Second.
We have a motion to open public comment made by Councilor Eccles and seconded by Councilor Stewart. If there is no objection, public comment is now open.
If you're here to speak on the Health, Education, and Welfare Committee meeting, any items on the agenda, please raise your digital hand or make it known. At this moment, I do not see anyone with their digital hand raised or a check mark by their name.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no motion made, I would close and make motion public comment if there is no objection. Seeing no objection, public comment is now closed. And we have before us Order 2022-15, reappointment of Douglas McDonald, 47 Woodhouse Street, to the Cemetery Commission for a 3-year term, set term to expire on the last day of February 2024. This order is offered by Mayor Paul Broder. And
I'm muted.
Mayor Broder, you're muted.
No, I'm not muted. I saw President Sinella with his hand up. I wasn't sure if he was trying to have the floor before I spoke.
President Sinella.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Where this is a reappointment, I wasn't aware that the mayor was going to be speaking, but defer.
I will certainly be brief because for at least some of you.
Point of order. I think we have to suspend the rules. So I motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
We have a motion to suspend the rules made by Vice Chair Migliarelli, seconded by President Sinella. The rules is now suspended, and the floor is yours, Mayor Broder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I appreciate the opportunity. While this is a reappointment, to reintroduce you to Doug McDonald. If you look at his really a simple statement of his community involvement, you will see it as a long and storied career, both in the predecessor body to you guys, the Board of Aldermen, and to a host of other civic activities, both directly related to the management of the city and to many, many philanthropic and civic-minded affairs. Rather than take up a lot of your time, I will turn it over to Commissioner McDonald for any comments or questions that you all have of him.
Thank you, Mayor Broder. Commissioner McDonald, if you would like to speak, the floor is now yours.
I would love to speak. I don't know if you can see me or not in there.
We can, but we can hear you.
Oh, all right. It's a pleasure to serve the city. I've been doing it for many years. I appreciate Paul Broder putting in a reappointment. The cemetery is a real important part to the city. We do a pretty good job down there. The Public Works does a good job. The superintendent, Jack Rossi, and my board, Dan O'Neill, the chairman, and Eileen Hamlin, our latest member. And to the board, to the council, if you have any questions about the cemetery, or if you'd like to come down and look around or give me a call, or any one of the members, feel free to call me or to stop by. We're always welcome to chat with you people.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate all you do. And we have next Councilor Garpe.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll be quick. I just wanted to, having worked on the on the Cemetery Commission with Commissioner McDonald, I just want to thank him for his continuous service to this great community of over 40 years. So I just wanted to acknowledge him for that and thank him for continuing to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. And President Sinella.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo Councilor Garape's sentiments. And at this time, I would make a motion to recommend the reappointment of former President McDonald to the full board.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to recommend made by President Sinella, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Mr. Clerk, if you'd like to call the roll.
Sure. Chair Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliorelli,
Yes.
Councillor Eccles,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Thomas,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
6 yes.
Thank you. Next we have Order 2022-14, appointment of James Oosterman, 54 Ellis Farm Lane, to the Affordable Housing Trust for a 2-year term, set term to expire the last day of January 2023, and this order is offered by Mayor Paul Brother.
Again, thank you, Madam Chair. For those of you who've been in the community for any length of time, you're familiar with the many ways in which Mr. Oosterman has contributed to the community, from his active membership in Rotary to his long service at the Melrose Cooperative Bank, both in a senior role as a vice president and chief lending officer, but also being very connected to their good work throughout the community through their foundation and prior to the formation of that foundation. If you know Jim, you also know that he has been involved in affordable housing advocacy in Melrose for over 20 years. He was an initial member of the Affordable Housing Corporation, if memory serves, and also obviously has a great deal of lending experience, knows an awful lot about the marketplace, but also the community we seek to serve here in Melrose. Jim also had long service on the Melrose Housing Authority, but also serves on the board of Mystic Valley Elder Services, which I think is really critically important, because one area that we need to focus on in terms of offering housing options to members of our community is certainly our aging population, both from an affordability standpoint and in certain respects from a production standpoint. So I couldn't be more delighted that Jim has agreed to serve, and I offer his nomination for your consideration.
Thank you, Mayor Broder. Mr. Oosterman, I would like to echo Mayor Broder's words and appreciate you stepping up and everything you've been doing for our community. The floor is now yours if you'd like to speak before we vote on that or on this order.
No, thank you, Chairperson Jamaluddin. I'm honored to be asked. The Affordable Housing Trust is something that the Affordable Housing Task Force started advocating for many years ago. I've been known for, if Denise Gaffey knows one person who's been advocating for it, it's been me, pushing with some other people on our committee, saying let's move this along. And we're really excited to have this finally happen. I long advocate for not just creating new affordable housing in the city, but also doing what we can to maintain the affordability levels of housing for a lot of people, whether they're struggling, whether rent, ownership opportunities, wherever it might be. So I'm looking forward to making the best use of the city's money in this fund and to make sure that it gets put to the best use possible.
Thank you. And is there any, Councillor Garpe?
Thank you, Chairman, Chairwoman Jamaluddin. I'd like to just thank Mr. Oosterman for volunteering for this appointment. He's been a long member of the community, very active for many years, and his experience will be a huge benefit to the Melrose Housing Trust. So thank you for volunteering.
Thank you.
Councillor Eccles?
I would like to also thank Mr. Oosterman for stepping up, and if no one else has anything to add, I'd make a motion to recommend for passage at this time, Madam Chair.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councillor Eccles, seconded by President Sinella. Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Chair Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliorelli,
Yes.
Councillor Eccles,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Thomas,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
6 yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Oosterman.
Thank you all very much.
And now we have Order 2022-28, appointment of Seamus Kelly, 259 West Emerson Street, to the Affordable Housing Trust for a one-year term set to expire the last day of January 2022. And this order is offered by Mayor Paul Brodeur.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Just a quick point of clarification. The reason why some terms are of different lengths is because as a new body, some terms are going to be longer than others to make sure that there is not a wholesale turnover of the board or commission at any particular time. Mr. Kelly comes to us as a real seasoned public servant and really with significant policy expertise, both in the legislative and executive arenas. In particular, I want to highlight among his many accomplishments is his service as a legislative director at the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development for several years, I believe in the 2007 to maybe 2011 range. A lot of housing legislation and debate happened during that time, and Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development is where that policy lives and where it gets implemented. So in Mr. Kelly, we have a candidate that has certainly been through the ropes at the state level, knows what programming is out there, recognizes the populations we're trying to serve with expanded housing options, and most recently served on our Housing Production Plan Advisory Committee for the last year. So as a particular lens into what we can do here in Melrose to really expand what is available both to our current residents and folks that might want to come here, start a family, work here in particular, and make life a little bit better for folks. So I'm very excited to tap his experience and offer him for your consideration.
Thank you, Mayor Brodeur. And we have Mr. Kelly. The floor is yours if you'd like to speak.
Great, thank you very much. Really appreciate what the mayor had to say and for his appointment and to be before all of you today. As he mentioned, as the mayor mentioned, I do have a background in housing. The first Patrick administration, I was the legislative director at the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, primarily focusing on affordable housing, very low income housing, and public housing. So I think I have and homelessness as well, I should say. So I think that gave me a pretty solid background at the state of play of what's going across the state. And then also now within Greater Boston, having been on the Housing Production Advisory Committee, really saw some of the data that exists about what's going on in Melrose, the challenges that current residents face, seniors face, people that want to move here. So I think this is a good opportunity to use this trust to really tackle a number of projects. There are a number of things that can be done: financial support for construction of affordable housing, money could go to rehab of existing homes. I think there's a bunch of different things that can happen, including using this fund to try to get other sources of revenue to beef it up to really be able to support housing in the city.
Thank you so much. And we have Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. In addition to Mr. Kelly's impressive background that seems custom fit for this role, I have the pleasure of also having Mr. Kelly in my ward, and He's additionally an active person in the community. It reaches out, communicates, and I think he's going to be a great addition to this. So with that, I'd like to recommend him for passage on this order.
Second.
We have a motion motion to recommend made by Councillor Stewart and seconded, I believe, by Vice Chair McLearly. And Mr. Clerk?
Chair Jamaldine,
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliarelli,
Yes.
Councillor Eccles,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Thomas,
Yes.
President Sanella.
Yes.
That is 6 yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you.
And we have now Order 2022-27, appointment of Anthony Chu to serve as Health Director for the City of Melrose. This order is offered by Mayor Paul Broder. And do we have Mayor Broder?
Yes, ma'am. And again, I want to thank you for the time and consideration that you're putting into this nomination. Hopefully, some of you have had an opportunity to meet Mr. Chu at the Victorian Fair, where we were extended the invitation, and he offered to stop by for a couple of hours and ended up staying around 5 hours, starting to get to know some of the folks in the community and hear about their concerns. I am extremely proud to offer his name into nomination. As you know, this is something of a joint appointment, would be the health director of the Melrose and Wakefield district. And past, of course, is prologue with this position. As you know, we went through a very thorough recruitment process and quite frankly had an initial round of applicants that we weren't entirely satisfied with and decided to reopen the search. And I'm happy to say that paid tremendous dividends when you're trying to fill a position that is occupied by someone like Ruth Clay, who retired after 25 years of service to the city and really built the health department from the ground up. It was very, very reassuring and confidence inspiring to see Anthony step forward for this position and really to distinguish himself among a very high quality group of applicants. I certainly want to thank Ruth Clay for setting the table. I want to thank our now interim health director, or former interim health director, Elaine Sylvia, who, as you all know, came out of retirement to help us bridge the gap between Ruth's retirement and where we are today. She's been an incredible asset, and we were very fortunate to have her. And I hope that she rejoins the Wakefield Board of Health to continue her service in that community. But it is now my distinct pleasure to talk a little bit more about Anthony for the health director portion of the Melrose part of the job, I guess I would say. If you've had a chance to read his resume, I think you'll agree it is outstanding, and that we're very fortunate to have Anthony here. He is an epidemiologist with 2 bachelor's degrees in things that we could all use a little bit of education in these days with biology and applied stats, and also significantly, sorry about that, has a master's in public health from Yale University. He comes to us from the city of Manchester, New Hampshire, where he served as a public health specialist. During that time, he developed community prevention strategies to address disease and health risk mitigation behaviors, particularly pertaining to opioid or substance misuse. He was also responsible for disseminating COVID-19 response information, as well as conducting data analysis related to community spread and outbreak investigation, things that obviously in our current situation are critically important to the work that we are doing and will continue to do. Also lining up with our city's goals and objectives, Anthony was appointed chair of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee in Manchester. And we are very fortunate to find a candidate of such outstanding qualification that also shares our commitment to advancing public health through an equity lens. The technical skills alone that he brings, along with his strong educational background and his experience really working on the front lines of COVID-19 response, really identified him as the superior candidate during what was a very rigorous recruitment process. I look forward with the opportunity to work with him as we continue to respond to the pandemic and take on all the other public health challenges that we know exist. So I again am delighted to recommend him for your consideration and urge your consideration and approval of his nomination. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mayor Broder. And if you don't mind, we would like to, it's 8:16 right now, actually, and we'd like to go to full council meeting, and then we can suspend the rules and go back and vote on this order.
Madam Chair, motion to adjourn.
Motion for recess.
To recess, thank you. Recess.
Second.
We have motion for recess made by Councilor Stewart, seconded by President Scannella. And for Mr. Shu, please, thank you for your patience. And if you can just stay with us until we're back. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk? We lost Mr. Clerk.
Happy to call the roll if you'd like.
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
I think Ms. Ford is present with us. She could call the roll.
All right.
There you go. Andrews.
So I'll call the roll.
Yes, please.
Andrew.
Yes.
Great. Welcome to the September 20th City Council meeting. The time is now 8:18. I am Councilor Sanella, and pursuant to an act extended to certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency signed by Governor Baker on June 16th, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. We will post a record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Melrose website and on mmtv3.org. The public can find online access instructions to view this meeting at the cityofmelrose.org/remote meeting site. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilor Eccles.
Here.
Councilor Garapay.
Here.
Councilor Gregoritis.
Here.
Councilor Jamaluddin.
Here.
Councilor McMaster.
Here.
Councilor McNaught.
Here.
Councilor Migliarelli.
Here.
Councilor Stewart.
Here.
Councilor Thomas.
Here.
Councilor Tremontosi.
Here.
Councilor Snella. Excuse
Here.
me, President Snella.
It's okay. Thank you.
Madam
And
President.
without objection, I would like to approve our council minutes from September 13th without reading. Seeing there's no objection, those minutes are now approved. Without objection, I'd like to open the floor for public comment. Seeing that there's no objection, our floor is now open for public comment. Now, Madam Clerk, I believe there were several folks that wish to speak on matter that was in legal and ledge, which will be pulled up at the end of our meeting. So I do want to give those folks an opportunity to be heard.
Sure, I see, looks like two people from the same household. I'm going to unmute Mr. Don Stade. I believe I'm saying that correctly.
Stead. Yep.
Stead, thank you. Mr. Stead, can you hear us?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Hi. I own a property in downtown Melrose, and I'm also concerned with the rat issue. I'm asking if the Board of Health could go out and inspect the dumpsters in the downtown area, especially of those servicing the food establishments. And as everybody knows, the rats they're smart. They're not going to the barrels. They're going for the big feed, and which is the dumpsters. I think if we could address this issue with the Board of Health going out and inspecting them, that would help. That's what I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I do see Mrs. Stead's hand up as well. I don't know if she's also looking to speak.
Let me check right now. Mrs. Steed, are you ready to speak? She's on the phone and he was on a computer, so it might be the same household.
Okay. And then did Miss Berardi want to speak as well?
I don't see a hand up, but Ms. Berardi, I can unmute you now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, as you know, there's the rat issue. I know we're talking about covered barrels and watching the dumpsters. What about the trash cans within the city in parks and on Main Street downtown that have no covers? Can something be done about that?
Ms. Berardi, this is a forum for the public to speak. We don't get into a Q&A at this time.
Okay, oh, okay. But can I say one thing? I want to thank you all very much. And I hope that everyone votes for the trash so that it is more clean. And I'm sorry, I just don't have the words. I had it 5 minutes ago. I want to thank you very much for addressing all of this tonight. It's truly appreciated.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I believe that is it. I don't see any other hands unless you see anybody.
I do not.
And if there's no objection, I'd like to close the floor for public comment. Seeing no objection, public comment is now closed. I will entertain a motion. Actually, if there's no objection, I'd like to go to recess this meeting so that we can finish up GW. Okay, we are now recessed.
Mr. President, make a motion to recess.
I already did that through unanimous consent. Thank you. Do we have, there we go. Back to you, Chair Jamal.
Thank you, President Sinala. And we're back to Order 2022-27. Do we still have Mr. Chu? Okay. Mr. Chu, if you'd like to speak, the floor is now yours.
Yes. First, I want to say thank you. Thank you all for having me. I want to say thank you to Mayor Broder for both kind words. I'm very excited to get started and really help out Melrose here. So as a little bit of background, my background is in epidemiology. And so one of the focuses I've had in the past was infectious diseases. When I first came to my role in Manchester as a public health specialist, one of my focuses was on substance use prevention. Sorry. So one of my main focuses was on substance use prevention, and a lot of the work revolved around data analysis. And so based on our partnerships with public health and public safety, one of our main partners were police and fire. And so we worked closely with them to work in a harm reduction framework. And this moved away from kind of an enforcement kind of classic way of enforcement around drugs. And we wanted to move towards harm reduction services. And so one of the things, one of my main focuses here, starting as the health director, will be to hire a strong candidate in the substance use coordinator position. That is one of the things I wanted to address as early as possible. Also, the COVID, the ongoing pandemic, is something that will also have much of our attention in terms of keeping our children safe in schools, as well as having our nurses perform the contact tracing that they've done. I believe that former Director Clay and our interim director, Elaine Silva, has laid a great framework in terms of which direction the department is going. And one of the things I hope to contribute is to bring a data mindset to the department. I have a very strong interest in evaluation. One of the things that I hope to bring to the department is a transparency, so everyone can hold us accountable in terms of the mission that we're pursuing, and that's for a lot of issues, including COVID as well as substance use in Melrose. So I want to say thank you again for everyone for considering my nomination.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. And we have next Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Mr. Shu, welcome. Your credentials are impressive, and as an epidemiologist, you're absolutely qualified to lead during the ongoing pandemic and beyond. I was also pleased to see your past work pertaining to substance abuse. As our public health director, you'll have many responsibilities, including hiring a new substance abuse prevention coordinator. Melrose has not had a substance abuse coordinator for almost a full calendar year amidst the ongoing pandemic. Many adults, and in increasing numbers nationally, teens have turned to substance abuse during the pandemic. How will you help bring awareness to the dangers of drugs and alcohol abuse in our community? And once hired, how will you help our new substance abuse coordinator to bring awareness and education on the dangers of substance abuse to our most vulnerable students at the middle school and high school in Melrose?
Thank you for your question. So in terms of the substance use here in the community, it goes hand in hand with some of my experience in the diversity, equity, and inclusion framework as well. A lot of the ways we talk about substance use in health nowadays, a lot of it focuses on language that we use. And so we want to make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page in terms of this being an ongoing disease that that individuals will struggle with. And so when we look at that in that framework, we want people to understand that there is different pathways to recovery. And so it's not kind of a one size fits all type approach. And so when we look at services out there such as MAT, medication assisted treatment, there's also sober living houses. So there's many different pathways to recovery. And so we as a department will hopefully bring that mindset. In terms of hiring a strong candidate for that substance use coordinator position, I will say that I was in a very similar position actually in my previous position in Manchester, New Hampshire. They had actually not had a substance use coordinator position, and my public health specialist role actually filled that and the epidemiologist position. So I do have a great appreciation for someone who has that ability to do coalition building, that relationship building. We actually have a great partnership here at the Mystic Valley Health Coalition. That's the surrounding area, 6 communities. So there is a lot of work already being done in surrounding communities. And one of the things I hope to find in a strong candidate would be someone who appreciates, the value of data, but also someone who appreciates the qualitative part of it. So they're able to do those focus groups, they're able to do those interviews and really pull out, those underlying factors that individuals struggle with. And then we can find services that we can connect them with related to that. So one of the priorities we will be looking for in individuals is experience in substance use, but more importantly, that relationship building.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. There has been a lack of programming and a lack of involvement with the substance abuse coordinator's office, not only for the past year when the position's been vacant, but even years before that. I've talked to the principal at Melrose High School, and the principal at the high school said that, that there was no real connection between the students and the substance abuse care with the public health office. Would you want to see more programming at the Melrose Public Schools, the high school and the middle school, about the dangers and awarenesses of drug abuse?
Yes, absolutely. So related to that question, we have a great partnership, obviously, with the town of Wakefield. They have a model program and the youth action teams. So they do a lot of great work in terms of youth advocacy when it comes to awareness of drug use. And so we have a really strong staff in Wakefield that already has this program in place. And realizing that Melrose and Wakefield are not the same community, each community has its own struggles and they have, unique pieces around them. I believe that, engaging the elementary and middle and high school level, it's never too soon to start, I believe. And having that framework already in Wakefield, hopefully we can find someone that can partner with them and bring that here as well, and then tailor it to the needs of Melrose.
Thank you again. I'm very familiar with the programs that Wakefield has over there. It would be great to see similar programs in the Melrose Public School system. I thank you for your openness and honest answers. I look forward to voting for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. And next we have Vice Chair Magliarelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chu, for being here tonight. As you probably appreciate that this public health is such a huge topic right now, and the intersection between public health and so many of the other issues that are affecting our city right now it is something of great importance. So I'm excited to see read your resume and hearing more about your background and seeing what you can bring to Melrose. I just wanted to ask a question a little bit. I heard, I think you had developed a successful strategy for communicating to the public about COVID. And I was just wondering what kind of practices would you bring from your experience to this role? And what are you seeing as maybe improvements we can do in communicating about the various stages of the pandemic as we move through them with the greater community?
Great. Thank you for your question. So in terms of COVID, in terms of communication, I think one of the biggest things that I'm taking from previous experience is we had created kind of an all-inclusive dashboard. And so that includes easy to read graphs, including interpretations as well for the city of Manchester. We were working closely with the state as well to provide data that is relevant to the citizens of our city. And so we're hopefully going to bring that as well to Melrose. My goal is to build internal capacity as well. So myself, I have experience doing the epidemiology, doing the data pieces as well. But we have very strong staff on hand that have that kind of flexibility in terms of their abilities to work in the public health realm. And so there is interest in building out that capacity for epidemiology. And so one of the things that I want to focus on is the data pieces. Data, is very important and very useful, but it's only as useful as you're able to communicate them to the public in in that fashion. So I think that once we build out this kind of dashboard that lists out the metrics that are relevant to us right now, then hopefully we'll have kind of an open line of communication. People have questions about how to interpret data at a certain point, then we can point out what trends we're seeing, how it reflects currently, and how it compares to the prior stages of the pandemic as well. So hopefully we'll be able to build out that framework and then have the contact tracing pieces, the resources, as well as clarifying a lot of the different policies that are changing. So that's including CDC guidelines, the DESE, the Department of Elementary and Middle Education, secondary education. So having those policies clearly listed and then kind of justifying which policies we are really holding to, and maybe policies that we are holding to a stricter standard here in Melrose. And so clarifying the reasons why we have certain policies.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. I think it's such a complicated amount of information to kind of digest for any one person, and people are often seeking different sources. So it's gonna be helpful to have you in this role to help centralize these communications and what's driving your policy decisions for the city of Melrose. So thank you very much.
And if it would be okay, I just want to expand a little bit on some of the COVID data that we're seeing. So one of the issues that I wanted to tackle was we have a lot of focus here, and rightfully so, on the spread of COVID in schools. And so to protect parents and protect children, we have a lot of DESE guidelines in place that, in terms of close contacts, we have test and stay programs. We, in terms of testing, we have pool testing, and then we do the, protocol. If there's a positive test, we have 2 Binax now rapid antigen tests. But a lot of these policies are just layers of protection, other layers of protection that we're hoping to address. This is both true in Melrose and other surrounding communities, is after school programs. A lot of these after school programs, children participate in programs that may not be directly linked to the schools. And so this is also an avenue of exposure. And this is something that we want to focus on. We want to reach out to these organizations and kind of express the importance of them following similar DESE guidelines. Because they are not part of the school system, we can't enforce DESE guidelines with them, but we can do the education and we can show them that what the implications of the testing and the distancing that they have going on in their programs can affect children in their school systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shu. I want to thank you for stepping up and taking and applying for this position and for helping our community improve. Of course, I just point of clarification. You mentioned about your interest in working with to focus on substance use and working with this population. It is very important to clarify the difference between substance use and substance abuse. Is just because we have mentioned both terms. So there is a big difference between the substance use and substance abuse. And we just want to take into consideration that, because I know how important is that for this population. A question: how are you planning to collect the data? We know that this is a very wide population that is not limited to age or to race or to any different criteria. So how are you planning to collect your data?
Thank you for your question. So I'm glad you clarified just in terms of terminology. Language is a very big part of the substance use, tackling the substance use and epidemic. A lot of the the stigma that revolves around substance use is based on outdated language or misunderstanding of individuals that struggle with this disease. And there's a wide spectrum of individuals and what they struggle with and to what degree they do. I think in terms of data collection, I can speak to experience in the past. I've worked closely with the New Hampshire State Department in terms of collecting data from the emergency department setting. So in that sense, we can also, I will also be reaching out to the state level to talk about a data sharing agreement in the emergency department setting. That becomes a kind of a strong piece in terms of having a chief complaint text form. So, and then we also have diagnoses codes. And so that kind of gives us the basis of kind of quantitative data in terms of who's visiting the ED environment, to what severity they are being seen. We also had response unit numbers. So we had AMR, American Medical Response was the main agent in terms of responding to calls for service when it came to opioid use and substance use. And so we also worked closely with them to understand what patterns they were seeing in terms of when they arrived, was there naloxone administration, what condition the individual was found in, and we wanted to really understand what factors contributed to refusal of service. And that was one of the big pieces that we focused on, was what factors prevent individuals from accessing resources that are already existing. And so one of the other ones we wanted to work with are sober living houses and shelters. We wanted to seek out individuals and do this kind of qualitative interview and qualitative analysis and thematic analysis to see what themes we could pull out in terms of what resources may already exist but are hard to access, and really understand what barriers there are that maybe we haven't considered in this community. So each community obviously has different factors, and we wanted to really understand that. So I think group interviews and specific qualitative analysis is definitely one of the main pieces we're going to go for.
Thank you. Great to hear your plans. It's really important to see what is it that you're going to bring to our community. Especially, we know that we have a good number of our residents that can benefit from those plans that you have for us. I would also love to see the work that's going to be between our new social worker and your department that can be expanded and support our residents and on any level possible. And on that, I would also remind and ask again to expand our social worker services. If there is no one, I have Councillor McMaster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a non-voting member of this committee, so I would defer to any committee members before speaking, but I did want to at least get in queue.
At this time, I don't think I have anyone that would like to speak, so you're on if you'd like.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. Chu. Happy to have you before us this evening. The mayor talked a little bit about your experience of prevention work and risk mitigation relative to COVID-19. You talked a little bit about that as well. Can you talk about how you can transfer that experience to an issue you heard earlier tonight when we discussed the rat problem? Based on your experience and based on some of your academic background, and again, very, very impressive academic background, what are some of the things you think we can be doing as a city in terms of having a robust prevention program? Councilor Migliorelli mentioned earlier, we are limited in terms of what we can do in terms of passing laws. And I think we all stand committed to looking at other ways for effective code enforcement and to working in collaboration with Mayor Broder. But in terms of some of the other things that you think that we can do based on your professional and academic research experience, what might those things be and what would they look like to the public?
Thank you for your question. So in terms of the rat issue, since coming on, I've definitely had the time to hear about many sides of this. Many people have spoken to me about this, and so I've had the chance to talk a little bit about this with other communities as well. So one of the most important things, so I believe there's a two-pronged approach to this. One of them is making sure that we have a strong partnership with other areas that are dealing with similar issues. And so the rat problem is really a regional issue. And so we have a great partnership with our Mystic Valley Health Coalition. And so we've spoken at length, and there is a program that we are working on right now, and it involves messaging, involves clear communication as to risk mitigation techniques. And so one of the issues that was heard earlier was about the garbage disposal. There are many other things that we can do. We can help promote in terms of messaging that in a positive manner. A lot of the negative kind of connotations that comes with enforcement may not be as effective, but if we talk about, in a sense, how we can partner with our citizens here to do the risk mitigation is definitely an important piece. So one of the things that we've talked about in this messaging, and once we've developed this kind of consistent language with our partners in the Mystic Valley Coalition, we will be releasing more materials, more education pieces, as well as other resources that we can turn to for residents. And so one of the things that we've talked about is disposal of garbage in a proper manner. That includes barrels, that includes dumpsters, and we've talked about regulations. And this is a little bit further down the road. So we've had some talks about what the city can do in terms of cleaning up dumpsters and talking about monitoring of those. But for private residences and other areas, we can talk about trimming trees and shrubs to remove overgrowth, and this prevents some of the habitation areas for rats. We've talked about feeding wildlife. That has been one of the issues that has come up. Pet waste is actually a source of food for rats, and so cleaning up pet waste and removing standing water, that actually hits several areas, including mosquitoes and vector areas where they can breed. And then just keeping generally a clean area in front of residences and around the residents. These are all risk mitigation techniques that we can communicate to the public in an efficient manner, where we're also working from our end to regulate, if that's cleaning public areas, but we also want, to make sure that the citizens understand that they also play a role in what we can do here.
Thank you, Mr. Chu, for that comprehensive answer. One of the things that we saw at the Mayor's Educational Forum was an actual tangible map of certain problem locations in the community. Although I appreciated that, I do think there are some opportunities with heat mapping, and it sounds like you have some of that academic experience to perhaps do that in a more visually effective way, in a way that is able to look at real-time data, where the rats are, where they're moving, and to perhaps do that in collaboration with some of the other communities in the Mystic Valley area. So I'd really encourage you to look into that, and to the extent that we can be supportive of that, I think we would all like to be. My other question relates to the idea of community partnerships. You discussed that. You have some experience in that arena, and it touches upon something that Councilor Migliorelli astutely said, which is the intersectionality of social issues. And that's something that she and I and Councilor Jamaldine have had conversations about in a meeting a few months ago among the three of us to discuss different ways that we can respond as a city in a less siloed way. So when we talk about multidisciplinary teams, oftentimes it is formal community-based networks, but I'm wondering what the opportunities may be to develop a more systemic, connected, networked team across city departments, understanding that individuals facing substance use disorder, domestic violence, serious mental illness, or any other number of issues where we do see that intersectionality, that we are able to approach it in a real robust way, where the police department is talking to the health department and the fire department and other city departments that may not be obvious, like our librarians who are engaging the public. So what opportunities do you see to create that networked team approach across city departments, and what might that look like?
Thank you for your question. So I think I see great opportunity in terms of the crossover between departments. So as you said, traditionally there may have been some kind of siloed work in terms of public health staying in that realm, and police staying in one realm, and fire. One of the things I will draw on from my previous experience is the sharing of roles. So we actually, in my previous position, worked closely with police in terms of positions. And so we've actually had, we actually had communications, public information officers employed at our department as well as the police department, but they reported to the other departments. So we've actually had those positions shared between groups, and those actually have allowed us to have different avenues of collaboration in that aspect. We've also had community health workers. So one of the things, in the list of priorities I have is to have community health workers that really reflect those populations that we are trying to serve. And so having those work closely with law enforcement, we're really trying to integrate them into the community as well, so that the community can build that trust and that relationship with the police, as well as having those community health workers that may have lived experience that they can help explain certain issues, or they can help really understand what is going on. I think also for the public library system, I see a great opportunity in terms of education. And so for diversity, equity, and inclusion issues, it's still kind of a large, kind of heated debate nationally as well. So and I'm sure it's not any different here. What we want to do is we want to include the library as a place for education. We want to be able to hold, seminars that kind of have people explain, what struggles that they face in the public realm. And we can talk about, how we can foster that environment, and we can reach out to different groups and really do that kind of recruiting in terms of having them fill positions that traditionally they may not see as open avenues. So I think having shared positions is definitely something I'm looking forward to discussing with police and fire, as well as the public library. I want to see that collaboration in terms of data collection. We've had in the past emergency management coordinators that have been hired by our health department that have worked in the fire department. And so we've been able to work in both places and have them kind of share their experiences with both places, so that we can really communicate better.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. And if your appointment is voted favorably out of committee tonight, I do look forward to voting to support you tonight before the full council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Master and Councilor Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I'd like to make a motion for recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion for recommendation made by Councilor Thomas, seconded by Councilor Stewart. Mr. Clerk?
Chair Jamaldine?
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliorelli?
Yes.
Councilor Eccles?
Yes.
Councilor Stewart?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
And President Sinella?
Yes.
That's 6 yes.
6 yes, and motion passes. And thank you again, Mr. Shu. And with that, do we have any motion for
Motion to
adjourn?
adjourn.
Second.
We have motion to adjourn made by President Sinala, seconded by Vice Chair McLeod. Mr. Clerk?
Chair Jamaldine,
Yes.
Vice Chair Migliarelli,
Yes.
Councillor Eccles,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Thomas,
Yes.
President Sinella,
Yes.
6 yes.
Thank you, and we're adjourned.
Thank
And
you.
back to you.
Clerk Foot.
I am here. I'm just waiting for host privileges back. Thank you.
Let me know when you have host privileges. Still recording. I guess I can go. We left off resolution. So at this time, if there's no objection, I would like to suspend our rules so that we can hear from the sponsors first, and then I think we have a couple folks with us tonight. Madam Clerk.
I'm sorry, Chris, could you repeat that? President Sinella, I didn't hear the beginning.
Our rules are now suspended, and turning it over to you we left off with the resolutions.
Sure, resolution 2021-5, a resolution honoring the accomplishments of Benjamin D. Parker and Shane Buckley Fennell as Eagle Scouts.
Okay. Not sure if the sponsors, Councilor Jamaludin.
Thank you, President Sinella, and I would like to commend for immediate consideration.
Consideration is before us. So there is no objection. So this matter is now before us. Did you have anything else to add? This matter is now before us, Councilor Jamaludin.
Thank you, and I would like to read the resolution. I'm not sure if the Mr. Parker are here, but I know that they tried to wait to join us with this resolution. Unfortunately, due to the delay, they may have left. With that, this is a resolution honoring the accomplishments of Benjamin D. Parker and Shane Buckley Fennell as Eagle Scouts. This resolution is offered by me, Maya Jamaldine, Councillor at Large, and Sean McMaster, Councillor of Ward 5. Whereas the Eagle Scouts Award is the highest award earned in Boy Scouts, and whereas to earn this award, Scouts must complete a series of requirements which will help them explore careers, develop leadership potential, learn new skills, and challenge them to give something of themselves and make an impact on their community. And whereas Benjamin D. Parker has been involved in scouting for over 13 years, after completing the Arrow of Light Award, Benjamin crossed over with 3 other Cub Scouts from his den and became a member of Boy Scouts Troop 635. Shane Buckley Fennell joined the Scouts in 1st grade as a Tiger and Cub Scout Pack 615. As Webelow Chain earned the Arrow of Light rank and then crossed over and joined Melrose Boy Scout Troop 635. And whereas during this time, Benjamin and Shane earned ranks and merit badges at a prodigious pace, many of which were earned a TL Storer Scout Camp and the Hidden Valley Scout Reservation. Benjamin also attended Merit Badge University and Harvard and attended the Eagle Week at New England Base Camp in Milton. Whereas in the summer of 2017, Benjamin and Shane were fortunate to be able to go with Mr. Lippert, Mrs. Han, and other scouts for a 10-day backpacking trek in the wilderness at the Philmont Scouts Ranch in New Mexico, where they successfully completed a 2 weeks, 120 miles hike through some of the fairest backcountry in the West. And whereas to earn this rank of Eagle Scout, Benjamin saw a need in our Melrose community. There were those in our community deceased military veterans who had worked and sacrificed for their country, who were buried at Wyoming Cemetery without proper records of their service. Those brave men and women and their contributions were being forgotten. After talking with city officials, he discovered there was a need for database listing the veterans interred at Wyoming Cemetery. On several occasions, Benjamin met with Shane. On several occasions, Benjamin met with Shane's Eagle Service project grew out of his love of biking. Sorry, I skipped one line. On several occasions, Benjamin met with cemetery leadership to determine the exact needs, and then he directed various campaigns involving his fellow scouts. Benjamin was then able to organize the creation of a database and instructed volunteers on how to enter that data. Shane's Eagle Service project grew out of his love of biking. He wanted to find a way to help others be able to ride. Shane researched and found that Bikes Not Bombs in Boston collects used bikes and ships them overseas to be distributed to those in need. Shane collected over 80 used bikes from the generous Melrose community and then trained and supervised members of the troop to repair flat tires and oil Shane before delivering the bikes to the charity. And whereas Benjamin also has been active in sports at his high school, Fellowship Christian Academy, playing basketball and tennis. Shane graduated from Melrose High School in August 2020 with recognition as an AP scholar for his achievements in a range of advanced placement courses. And whereas Benjamin is enrolled in Bob Jones University in the fall to receive his bachelor's in criminal justice, Shane started his freshman year at San Diego State University studying criminal justice. And whereas these achievements have resulted in Benjamin D. Parker and Shane Buckley Fennell receiving the rank of Eagle Scouts, the highest honor in Boy Scouting, on August 9, 2021. Now, therefore, be it resolved, we, the Melrose City Council, recognize and applaud these achievements and record these accomplishments in the permanent records of the City of Melrose.
Thank you. Councilor McMaster, do you have anything to add?
Just very briefly, thank you, Mr. President. I did want to thank Councilor Jamaldine for taking the lead on this resolution. She and I had the pleasure of attending the Eagle Court just last month at Blessed Sacrament. And I wanted to be there in support of Benjamin as the council liaison to the Veterans Advisory Committee. And I wanted to be there for Shane, who is a Ward 5 resident. As Councilor Jamaldine knows, the ceremony was lovely until the time that it started raining severely. Thankfully, we got through the ceremony, but we were unable to really gather afterwards and talk. So I didn't get a chance to talk with Benjamin or Shane. So I was pleased when Councilor Jamaldine reached out with an interest in partnering on this resolution. And I'm glad we can recognize them tonight. And I think Madam Clerk will ensure that we get a copy of these resolutions to the young men. One is going to school in California, the other Texas. So thank you again, Councilor Jamaldine, for your leadership and all your work on this resolution.
What is the will of the council as far as filing? Motion to place on file?
Motion to place on file.
Thank you. Motion to place on file made by Councilor McMaster,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Jamaluddin. Any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garapay,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Tramantosi,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
11 yes.
Thank you. And I do not see any communications from His Honor the Mayor and other city officials. New
Right.
business, Madam Clerk?
Order 2022-34, revised rules of order of the Melrose City Council.
Okay, and per our rules of order, I'm going to send this to Legal and Legislative Committee. I do want to strongly recommend that everyone try to attend for that meeting to weigh in. The chair can send out a reminder once this gets scheduled. And the order is out of order.
There are none.
Do have some orders from committee, and I will start with Councilor Tramatose.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I have would like to take order 2022-12. It's the appointment of Chris Redfern, 2 Spear Street, to the Conservation Commission, said term to expire on the last day of February 2024, to take that from committee.
Motion to pull 2022-12 out of committee, seconded by Councilor McMaster. Please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garapay,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Tramantosi,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
11 yes.
This matter is now for us, and we'll
At this time, then, Mr. President, I would like to move for that order number 2022-12 for passage.
Second.
Motion for passage made by Councilor Tramatose, seconded by Councilor Garapay. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garapay,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Tramantosi,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
11 yes.
Okay, and I will now turn to Councilor Migliarelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the purposes of bringing these 3 orders out of committee, I'd like to conjoin orders 2022-13, appointment of Sarah McClellan to serve as the Chief Assessor for the City of Melrose. Order 2022-32, a request and recommendation that the Honorable City Council authorize in-person early voting for the November 2nd, 2021 municipal election in the City Council chamber at Melrose City Hall, and Order 2022-33, calling city election Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. I'd like to conjoin
Second.
those.
Certainly, so we're looking to conjoin the following orders to pull out of committee made by Councilor Migliarelli, 22-13, 22-32, 22-33, seconded by Councilor Davis. Please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garapay,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sinella,
Yes.
11 yes.
Okay, these matters are now before us.
All right, so then we are gonna vote individually on each order. So order 2022-13 I'd like to motion for passage of that order. It comes from a recommendation for passage from the committee.
Second.
Passage made by Councilor Migliarelli, seconded by Councilor McNaught on order 2022-13. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garape,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sinella,
Yes.
11 yes.
All right. Next is order 2022-32, and that comes with a recommendation for passage. And at this time, I'm motioning for passage.
Motion for passage made by Councilor Migliarelli on 2022-32, seconded by Councilor Gregoritis. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garape,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sinella,
Yes.
11 yes.
All right, and order 2022-33 comes with a recommendation from passage from the Finance Committee, and at this time I motion for passage.
Second.
By Councilor Migliarelli for 2022-33, seconded by Councilor McNaught. Any discussion? And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garape,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sinella,
Yes.
11 yes.
Councilor Gregoritis.
Thank you, Mr. President. For purposes of pulling up from committee, I'm motioning to conjoin the following three orders from Legal and Ledge. Order 2022-16, amending Chapter 198 of the revised ordinances of the City of Melrose Solid Waste and Recycling Ordinance, update and schedule of fees. Order 2022-21, amending Chapter 228 of the revised ordinances of the City of Melrose Water, Sewers, and Drains. And Order 222-25, amending Chapter 198, Article 2, Section 198-2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Melrose Collection and Disposal.
Thank you.
Second.
So motion made by Councilor Gregoritis to conjoin and pull out of committee 2022-16, 22-21, and 22-25, seconded by Councilor Eccles. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garape,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sinella,
Yes.
11 yes.
Councilor Gregoritis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to suggest that we begin with Order 2022-21 because the other two orders, depending on how the will of this council, there may be some revisions required. So 2022-21 is amending Chapter 228 of the revised ordinances of the City of Melrose, water, sewers, and drains, and this comes from Legal and Ledge with a recommendation for passage. So I motion for passage.
Motion for passage on 2022-21, made by Councilor Gregoritis. Did not hear a second. Raise your hand.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Migliarelli. Any discussion? Seeing none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Jack Eccles? Oh, excuse me, Councilor Eccles?
Yes.
Councilor Garapay?
Yes.
Councilor Gregoritis?
Yes.
Councilor Jamaluddin?
Yes.
Councilor McMaster?
Yes.
Councilor McNaught?
Yes.
Councilor Migliarelli?
Yes.
Councilor Stewart?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
Councilor Tramontosi?
Yes.
President Sinella?
Yes.
11 yes.
Councilor Gregoritis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next, I would bring forward Order 2022-25, amending Chapter 198, Article 2, Section 198-2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Melrose Collection and Disposal. This comes from Legal and Ledge with a recommendation for passage, and at this time I move for motion for passage.
Second.
Made for passage by Councilor Gregoritis on 2022-25, seconded by Councilor McMaster. Any discussion?
I think, Madam Clerk.
Yeah.
That's just a quick question. Was this recommend passage as amended?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
And I believe, Mr. President, I believe this is a roll call vote as it's an amendment to an ordinance.
Yes. Yeah, everything's a roll call vote when we're virtual. So, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Councilor Eccles?
Yes.
Councilor Garapay?
Yes.
Councilor Gregoritis?
Yes.
Councilor Jamaluddin?
Yes.
Councilor McMaster?
Yes.
Councilor McNaught?
Yes.
Councilor Migliarelli?
Yes.
Councilor Stewart?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
Councilor Tramontosi?
Yes.
President Sinella?
Yes.
11 yes.
Councilor Gregoritis.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would bring forward Order 2022-16, amending Chapter 198 of the revised ordinances of the City of Melrose Solid Waste and Recycling Ordinance Update and Schedule of Fees. This comes with a recommendation for passage as amended from the Legal and Ledge Committee. And at this time, I would motion for passage, but believe there will likely need to be discussion on that.
Motion before us to recommend passage of 2022-16, made by Councilor Gregoritis. Did you want Councilor Tramontosi? Second.
Well, it's on discussion, if I could.
Yeah, I don't have a second on it though, so. Did anybody want to throw it?
Happy to withdraw the motion. I just wanted that was the recommendation of the committee was for passage, but I believe what we just passed impacts what's in what is available. So I guess I would recommend to further amend this order to strike the proposed language in section B.
That was B as in boy.
Correct, B as in boy.
And
Well,
do you want to withdraw your motion? We'll amend this. Is that
correct? I withdrew my motion for passage and instead am motioning to further amend the amended version.
Okay. Okay. So we're looking to further amend the amended version of the section B. I'm going to throw it over to Councilor Tramontosi, and then I'll get to Councilor McMaster.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, we do need a slight amendment to Article 2, Section 198-3B. So it would be consistent with the amendment, the order that we just passed. So we passed Order 2022-25, which amended Section 198-2. But this one here, 198-3B, references on the solid waste collection, the use of plastic or metal barrels or bags. So the terminology or bags under 198-3B would be inconsistent and contradictory to 198-2, which we just passed. So I would suggest, and I would move to amend order number order number 2022-16, reference Article 2, Section 198-3B to strike the two words "or bags" from that section. Does that make sense to everybody?
Article 2, 198-3B, striking.
Or bags, the two words "or bags" in that sentence. For solid waste collection, residents shall use plastic auto barrels under 45 gallons in 45 pounds.
So we're going to amend 2022-16, Article 2, Section 198-3B, striking bags.
Or bags.
So that is a motion to amend.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor McNaught. Still on discussion, Councilor McMaster. Do you have
Yes,
anything
Mr. President, Councilor Chairman Tozy is right. Just making sure that it's two words "or bags." I think he said that, but absolutely, that would be the amendment, which would ensure that our orders are congruous. Thank you.
So let's vote on this amendment, and then we can vote on the whole package, I guess.
Yes.
Anybody else on discussion? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could just call the roll for this amendment.
Councilor Eccles,
Yes.
Councilor Garapay,
Yes.
Councilor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Councilor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Councilor McMaster,
Yes.
Councilor McNaught,
Yes.
Councilor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Councilor Stewart,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas,
Yes.
Councilor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
11 yes.
So now we have the amended version of 2022-16.
This comes from Legal and Ledge as now amended to the amendment, so I would motion for passage.
Motion made for passage on the amended version by Councilor Gregoritis. Seconded by who?
Second.
Councilor Jamaluddin seconded that. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Eccles,
Yes.
Councilor Garapay,
Yes.
Councilor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Councilor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Councilor McMaster,
Yes.
Councilor McNaught,
Yes.
Councilor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Councilor Stewart,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas,
Yes.
Councilor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
11 yes.
Just add that maybe that amendment get held over to the clerk. Please. Councilor Jamaluddin, save the best for last.
Thank you. And for the purpose to pull it out of order, I would like to recommend to conjoin three orders. Order 2022-15, the appointment of Douglas McDonald, 47 Borough Street, to the Cemetery Commission for a 3-year term, set term to expire on the last day of February 2024. And Order 2022-14, appointment of James Usserman, 54 Ellis Farm Lane, to the Affordable Housing Trust for a 2-year term, set term to expire the last day of January 2023. And Order 2022-28, appointment of Seamus Kelly, 259 West Emerson Street, to the Affordable Housing Trust for a 1-year term, set term to expire the last day of January 2022. The last order is 2022-27, appointment of Anthony Chu to serve as Health Director for the City of Melrose.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Jamaluddin, seconded by Councilor McNaught to conjoin 2022-15 14, 28, and 27 to pull out of committee. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garapay,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sanella,
Yes.
11 yes.
Orders are now before us.
Thank you. And I'll start with Order 2022-15 coming for us with a recommendation of reappointment.
Motion made by Counselor Jamaluddin for the
Second.
recommendation of 2022-15, seconded by Counselor Garapay. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garapay,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sanella,
Yes.
11 yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin.
Thank you. And we have Order 2022-14 with a recommendation of passage.
Motion made by Counselor Jamaluddin for passage
Second.
of 2022-14, seconded by Counselor Thomas, I believe. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garapay,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sanella,
Yes.
11 yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin.
Thank you. And we have Order 2022-28 coming for us with a recommendation of passage.
Motion for recommendation passage of 2022-28, made by Counselor Jamaluddin,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Gregoritis. Discussion, Madam Clerk, please call.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garapay,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sanella,
Yes.
11 yes.
Thank you. And the last order is Order 2022-27. And this order is coming with a recommendation of passage.
Motion made for recommendation of passage on Order 2022-27, made by Counselor Jamaluddin, seconded by Counselor Eccles. Discussion, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garapay,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sanella,
Yes.
11 yes.
Who wants to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn made by Counselor Thomas, seconded by Counselor Jamaluddin. Madam Clerk, I'm not going to allow any discussion on this. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles,
Yes.
Counselor Garapay,
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis,
Yes.
Counselor Jamaluddin,
Yes.
Counselor McMaster,
Yes.
Counselor McNaught,
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi,
Yes.
President Sanella,
Yes.
11 yes.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Counselor Eccles, did you think you were back in high school?
Oh, with the first name? Yeah, kind of.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Good night.